Oh! Ow! Yo, Millhouse, I got you a balloon from the gift shop.
Wrong bones.
Okay, champ, physical therapy time. Who's ready for 4 hours of stretch band?
Glue cup?
30 years ago, The Simpsons delivered one of its most iconic pop culture parodies, introducing a whole new generation to Planet of the Apes through the unforgettable musical, Stop the Planet of the Apes, I Want to Get Off, from the 1996 episode A Fish Called Selma. Featuring Troy McClure, the absurd, catchy performance became a fan-favorite moment that still stands out decades later. Beyond nostalgia, the series continues to make headlines. Despite its legendary status, not every episode has been a hit. Season 23's Lisa Goes Gaga, featuring Lady Gaga, is widely considered the lowest-rated episode on IMDb, criticized for feeling more like a celebrity showcase than a true Springfield story. Still, the show's legacy remains unmatched. Created by Matt Groening, The Simpsons has surpassed 800 episodes, solidifying its place as the longest-running scripted TV series in history. Groening credits its longevity to constant reinvention and a mix of comedic styles that keep audiences engaged across generations. The milestone 800th episode, Irrational Treasure, proves the show isn't slowing down. Blending emotional storytelling with wild parody, including nods to National Treasure and TV drama The Pit, the episode centers on Marge's bond with Santa's little helper, delivering both humor and heartfelt moments. With talks of another movie and no plans to end the series, The Simpsons continues to evolve, proving that even after decades, it can still surprise audiences while honoring its iconic past. Hey, lovely viewers, welcome to our channel The Simpsons 24 Hours. 30 years ago, The Simpsons introduced a classic sci-fi movie to a new generation at its peak. The Simpsons excelled at speaking to two audiences at once, adults who appreciated the whip-smart comedy on every level, and kids who enjoyed cartoons and emulated Bart Simpson. For a large chunk of the 90s, I sat firmly in that second camp. I watched reruns religiously every day after school, but looking back, a lot of it flew right over my head. It took me years to understand why Homer laughed when Bart bought a cool pencil holder at the flea market, and my father had to explain why it was funny when a tidal wave of blood surged out of Mr. Burns' elevator in A Treehouse of Horror v. But there's one Simpsons pop culture reference that I appreciated the first time I saw it, even if I didn't really get the joke at the time: the Planet of the Apes musical. On March 24, 1996, The Simpsons first aired a Season 7 episode titled A Fish Called Selma. The story focuses on a romance between Marge Simpson's lovelorn sister Selma, Julie Kavner, and local movie star Troy McClure, Phil Hartman, and tackles complex issues of love and sexuality that I definitely didn't understand at the time. Basically, Troy is using Selma as a cover to hide his bizarre sexual preferences, while Selma really does fall for the aging actor. But if there was one thing I did get at the time, it was the musical number that arrives about halfway into the 20-minute episode. With their romance established, Troy invites Selma and her extended family to a performance of his new musical, Stop the Planet of the Apes, I Want to Get Off. While this is presumably a Broadway-length performance, we only get to watch a 2-minute segment at the end of the show where McClure's protagonist fights back against the ape oppressors and their leader, Dr. Zaius. The lyrics are simple, and the music is catchy in a disco sort of way. It's dumb, silly, and nonsensical, just like many of the best Simpsons bits. I hate every chimp I see. From chimpanzee to chimpanzee. No, you'll never make a monkey out of me. The set changes to reveal the sunken Statue of Liberty. Oh, my God, I was wrong. It was Earth all along. Yes, you finally made a monkey. Ape chorus, yes, we finally made a monkey. Yes, you finally made a monkey out of me. I love you, Dr. Zaius. The first time I watched this episode, I had no idea what Planet of the Apes was about, but the Simpsons writers did such a good job that it didn't matter. In the years since, I've seen a lot of Planet of the Apes movies, and each one increases my appreciation for the Troy McClure musical. Somehow, even 30 years later, it's still the best thing to come out of the iconic science fiction franchise. The worst episode of The Simpsons, according to IMDb. By the numbers, The Simpsons is undoubtedly one of the greatest, and most rewatchable, TV shows of all time. The series has won 37 Emmy Awards from over 100 nominations, and it passed a Gunsmoke in 2018 to become the longest-running scripted TV show in history. There have been 856 episodes of The Simpsons, as of this writing, and viewers have submitted almost 500,000 ratings via IMDb. The lowest-rated episode of The Simpsons to date by that metric is the season 23 finale, Lisa Goes Gaga. It scored an average of 4.0/10 stars by 3,700 viewers, with 1-star ratings outnumbering perfect 10s nearly 2-1. The episode takes criticism on several fronts. It's regarded as a showcase for the guest star and not a chapter in the story of Springfield, and there are some offbeat moments in the Simpson family living room. Lady Gaga and Marge, Julie Kavner, kiss on the sofa, and Homer, Dan Castellaneta, eats pieces of the singer's iconic meat dress in another scene. The main plot has the singer stop her touring train to help Lisa, Yardley Smith, during a crisis of self-esteem. Some fans regard that as a preposterous premise, even for a cartoon. One IMDb user rated the episode 3 out of 10 and called it a fawning, 22-minute commercial for Lady Gaga. Yuck. Many reviewers made similar comments about the episode being little more than an extended promo for the 16-time Grammy winner, and others noted the hypocrisy bookending the episode. It starts with Lisa being bullied at school and ends with her literally bullying Lady Gaga out of town, but that's hardly the end of the discussion about the episode. The Simpsons later engaged in some self-mockery over the Lady Gaga episode. The Simpsons writers made a callback to Lisa Goes Gaga in season 34, episode 16, Hostel Kirk Place. In the latter, Kirk Van Houten, Hank Azaria, leads a campaign to revise the school curriculum, and Gloria Prince, Gray Delisle, references Lady Gaga's visit and the building of the monorail as Springfield's darkest days. It's not often that The Simpsons refers back to itself like this, and the two episodes the writers chose to highlight are held in widely different esteem. While the episode, Marge vs. the Monorail, is ranked as the series' 6th best episode according to IMDb reviews, there is plenty of online commentary from viewers who agree that Lisa Goes Gaga deserves its spot at the bottom of the list. In a thread on the r/The Simpsons subreddit, one fan wrote, "They played it super safe with the Lady Gaga episode, having basically zero conflict, putting their guest star on a massive pedestal, and going with easy zingers." In a 2-star IMDb review, one fan had multi-layered criticism for the episode, writing, "The storytelling is very annoying and lays on so heavily with the sugar that it'll make your teeth ache. All the regular characters featured are either bland or out of type in the most bizarre of ways." The Simpsons hits another milestone. On Sunday the series, the longest-running American sitcom, will air its 800th episode on Fox. In an interview, the creator Matt Groening says there's no end in sight. A few years ago, at the airport, Matt Groening was steered into the TSA secondary screening line and told to remove the contents of his luggage. Then he heard a child's laugh ring out, in the unmistakable taunting tones of The Simpsons' bully Nelson Muntz.
Ha! Ha!
"I don't know if it was just the kid acting like the character, or if the kid knew who I was and was really rubbing it in," Groening said in a recent phone interview. Either way, the incident says something about Groening's legacy and the ubiquity of his creation. 39 years after a certain scraggly drawn cartoon family first appeared on television, as part of Fox's The Tracy Ullman Show, The Simpsons is about to air its 800th episode on the network. There have been some additional Disney Plus exclusive episodes. Irrational Treasure will premiere on Sunday, which also happens to be Groening's 72nd birthday. In a recent conversation, Groening spoke about how the show has evolved, the Homers in his own life, and why there is no end in sight for the series. "I'm not going to be the guy that says it's over," he said. This interview took place before recent reports noted similarities between a plot detail in a Simpsons episode from 2000 and Jeffrey Epstein's Island. On Friday, a representative for Groening declined to comment about the episode and about Groening's past contact with Epstein, revealed in court documents that were unsealed in 2019. Why do you think The Simpsons has lasted so long? I think of The Simpsons as a forum for different comedy styles. There are so many different kinds of jokes in the show. If the show had stayed consistent with my earliest vision, which was generally much more mild and not as crazy, I don't know that it would still be on the air. We reinvent the show over and over again, and the writers and animators are trying to surprise themselves over and over again. That keeps it fresh. What is your role these days? Way too much of my time is spent doing custodial cleanup work. I look at the designs of backgrounds and characters and props and things like that to make sure they're consistent. You would think that by this time, we must get it right every time. It's amazing we still need to tweak things. I take my credit seriously, but I can't say enough how much The Simpsons is a collaborative effort. It really is the amazing output of a lot of people working as hard as they can to be as funny as they can. What do you say to people who say The Simpsons peaked 30 years ago? The thing about humor is anybody can say, that's not funny. Everything isn't for everybody. It's been on an awfully long time. People who say, the show hasn't been good since year X, you're not watching the show. In recent years, and I don't know how the animators do it, we've been incredibly ambitious with our efforts not to repeat ourselves and surprise both us and the audience. The show has been part of the culture for so long, it is easy to forget how bizarre the original character designs are. I agree. Somebody wrote that the most memorable cartoon characters are the ones that you can identify in silhouette. No matter which way Mickey Mouse turns his head, his ears are distinct. That's what I tried to do with Bart, Homer, Lisa, Maggie and Marge. The Simpsons EP reveals which character's death would be the end of everything after 800 episodes. Editor's note, the following contains spoilers for The Simpsons, Season 37, Episode 14. 800 episodes later, and The Simpsons is still doing the thing other shows can't, making you laugh at something deeply silly, then catching you off guard with a moment that's oddly real. Sunday night's 800th episode, Irrational Treasure, is exactly that type of classic escalation the series thrives in. It starts with Marge, voiced by Julie Kavner, trying to get Santa's little helper in better shape, but then detours most absurdly onto a Philadelphia trip, and then swerves into a National Treasure parody where the family dog is in the middle of a historical conspiracy. Yet somehow, none of it is ever the series taking some kind of victory lap. In a Collider signature sit-down with the sitcom's 6-time Emmy-winning executive producer, Mike Price, it's actually the opposite. When we first came up with this idea, we had no idea it was going to be the 800th episode, he admits. The goal was simply, what's the best story that we can tell? That same understanding is why the episode also finds time to celebrate one of TV's most recent obsessions, The Pit. Price said the writer's room was basically hooked at once by the HBO drama, and because the story already had Marge rushing the dog to a veterinary. It just made absolute sense to go full Pit with it. They even pulled in Noah Weil, Catherine LaNasa, and Taylor Dearden to voice the medical staff looking after the pup. But if you're worried they'd ever make a milestone like this much darker, he doesn't mince words, there was never going to be a world where it ended with the dog really dying. The show can fake a series finale, have Conan O'Brien host it, and turn the lights off literally 12 times, but mess with Santa's little helper? That will be the end of everything. And that bigger-than-TV energy isn't stopping at just episode 800. Price also says the team is excited to return to the big screen with another Simpsons movie. I played a small role in the writing of the first one, and I hope we make something that's just as good as that one for this thing, he says. How The Simpsons found the 800th episode story without chasing the milestone. The idea came first, the milestone came later, how a Philly trip, a dog show, and Marge's bond with Santa's little helper became the spine. When we first came up with this idea for the show, we had no idea it was going to be the 800th episode. It just kind of worked out that way. When we start a new season, all the writers come up, and we talk about our ideas and things. So, Christine Nangle, a great writer, has been on the show for a number of years. I recently joined the ranks of what's called Matt Selman's co-runners. Matt is the showrunner, and myself, Tim Long, Brian Kelly, Rob Lazebnik, and Cesar Mazariegos are called the co-runners, meaning that we each individually have a couple of episodes that we sort of produce, kind of like the showrunner. Then Matt Groening, of course, is, above all, running the entire show, but we have a chance to individually work on some episodes. So, I knew Christine was a great writer. She'd written a bunch of amazing episodes. She's from Philadelphia, I'm from New Jersey, so we share some references, and we always make fun of how she's a Philly fan, and I'm a fan. So, I approached her and said we should do a show where the Simpsons go to Philadelphia. That's how it started. We had no idea at the time it was going to be the 800th show. No idea. Even once we started, maybe we thought that it might be, but that was never the feeling of, like, oh, we've got to do something special for the 800th episode. It was always, what's the best story that we can tell? So, in working out the story, it kind of was the cart leading the horse in terms of, alright, we know we want to get them to Philadelphia and have fun in Philadelphia. What's the best fun Simpsons story to at least get the family to Philadelphia? And Christine is a huge dog lover. She had a wonderful dog who, sadly, passed while we were getting ready to work on the show, named Philby, so you'll see in the episode that they talk about one of the dog shows they go to, which is called Philby's Poop Bag's Presents. It's a little tribute to her dog, Philby. So, she loves her dogs. I love my dogs. I have 2 dogs, golden retrievers, and so the idea of it being a dog show that gets them to Philadelphia came up, and then we took it from there. Then the emotional spine of the story, such as it was about Marge's relationship to the dog, and this idea of trying to keep them healthy and keep them safe, and then having them being caught up in this crazy conspiracy that leads to him being in huge danger. Ultimately, this came down to being really the kind of alchemy of what makes a good Simpsons episode. There's a lot of crazy stuff, and we do a parody of Nicolas Cage and National Treasure and everything around Philadelphia jokes, but at the center of it is that emotional story about what you feel when you're a pet owner and how they mean everything to you, and how you want to keep them alive and keep them safe. That speech that Marge has at the end, where she thinks she's lost the dog, and she talks about how, being a pet, you're signing yourself up for, at some point in 10 years or so, to be devastated when they're gone. That's how it came about. When we learned it was going to be the 800th show, it made total sense because we were already planning on doing the opening where it sort of tracks the relationship of the dog with the family, back to the very first episode. So, it's sort of coincidentally, serendipitously great that it became a milestone episode, and it began by hearkening back to the very first episode. I wouldn't say it's not a retcon, but going back to the first episode and extending the narrative of their life in between, how do you do something like that without actually messing up their future in some back-to-the-future way? How do you decide what to tweak and what not to tweak? Price. Well, we went back and watched the very first episode. Of course, the ending is Homer bringing the dog home, and then it ends with Marge kissing him. We were like, okay, well, then what happens next? Then we just started to tell the story of the unknown story of the dog that leads us into this story, and what Marge's relationship with him is. We've done several episodes centered around Santa's little helper over all these many years, and most of them have sort of centered on Bart, a couple with Homer, but we never did one with Marge. So, we figured this would be a fun thing to do. So, I don't know, you could call it retconning. I think for us, it's more just exploring a different aspect, and imagining what might have happened right after that moment of first getting the dog. It becomes this thing that I know personally with our own dogs that we deal with, which is wanting to love them and take care of them, but also give them treats and feed them from the table. It's a natural thing, but maybe that's not the best thing for the dog's health. That became that. Then it became fun to track this whole story about how the dog under Homer's and the kids' loving neglect leads him to have this health crisis, and now we're in season 4, now we're in season 7. That's why, in one scene, Homer's wearing his stonecutters, and later on, he's dressed as Pie Man from that season 15 or 16 episode. So, this just became a fun way to sort of skip around the history of the show and track this story. How The Simpsons pulled off its Pit parody, down to the hospital doors. A writer's room obsession with the pit led to a veterinary parody complete with lookalike hospital doors and real cast cameos. As we were working on the story, the first season of The Pit came on HBO. It was probably around a year ago, right now, when we first started working on the episode. So then we were all into it. Let's say the vast majority of everyone on the show was instantly like, oh my god, have you watched this show called The Pit? It's amazing. It's great. We love it. So, we were all into it, and then it just happened that the story was going to have Marge rushing the dog to the veterinary. And it just made absolute sense for me to say, what if it's The Pit, and all the writers got excited. At one point, we even had the joke that the hospital was going to be called Springfield Pet Trauma Center or something like that, and that when you focus in on the doors, it would say the pets, but it never worked. It just couldn't work. But then we drew the hospital to look like the hospital on The Pit. We've had other vet characters in the show. There's one going way back to the early seasons, which is kind of based on Dr. Ben Casey from the 1960s, like a very handsome, charismatic doctor. He's the one who threw the hamster in the garbage can. We had that guy. We had a very old, avuncular doctor, played by Michael York in some episodes. But we thought, excitement and peril just totally makes sense with the pit, so we knew we wanted to parody the pit, and then we were happy our casting director went out to Catherine, Lanasa, Taylor, Dearden, and Noah, and asked them if they would do it. We were so happy that they agreed to do it. They were happy to be on the show, too, so that made us happy. Was there a specific epitism you needed to make the segment really land for audiences? Because it's not just the characters, but the nuance that describes the series best. Price, we all like the attitude of Catherine's character, Dana, being kind of sassy when Marge brings him in. Catherine ad-libbed a couple of funny things, like the way she said stuff. I think the thing that I was happiest with the most, and I think that Selman pitched this, was Noah Wile's character having the emotional breakdown and crying behind the screen. While we were writing that episode, I had to look back at the timeline, but the pit was running, and then I think we wrote it originally, and then that last couple of episodes of the pit season 1 came on TV, where he cries in that room after what happened with the mass shooting. So, we were so happy that he was okay to have a little fun with that. But the way his character breaks down and cries on the floor, to me, that was the thing that really made it. They really sent it over the top. That was very Noah Wile's character-centric. From Kevin Bacon to Quinta Brunson, how the series turns Philly Love into guest casting. We actually had her in mind for it, how Philly Love shaped the guest list, and how the writers tuned Adrienne's lines to match Quinta's voice. Thanks for watching this videos. Please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up.